Welcome to the Smoking Word. Welcome to the.
What's up, everybody? We are back. The Smoking Word podcast is brought to you by CasaDeRock.com. If you haven't heard, that's my house of merch. Make sure you go there if you want to support me, you want to support the podcast, you just want to spend some money and get some gear. We have everything: shirts, shorts, hoodies. We got a lot of shit about to drop, so make sure you go there. You can also follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and go to the YouTube channel. I say it every time, and you know what? I'm going to keep saying it. It doesn't count unless you subscribe, motherfuckers. I love you all, but you just clicking in and listening and asking questions isn't enough. We got to put this shit on the map. So make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, repost, spread the word. We got to blow this shit up. But also, you could follow me on Instagram at HoyerRock357. Look out, we have some Madball shit dropping. We have a lot of collabs dropping with Omerta, with Pitchfork. So make sure to go check out those guys too and cop some of that merch too. You know, right? It's all about representing right now. And so you could also go on my Instagram for everything Madball, everything Casa the Rock, and everything Smoking Word. So glad to be back for 2021. Fuck COVID. Yo, I'm psyched about today's show. We got my old friend from one of my favorite hardcore bands, Eddie Sutton, Eddie Leeway. Yo, let's set this shit off.
To the Smoking Word.
It's been a minute. The last time I saw you was in either Florida, maybe, right? Well, after I seen.
I remember seeing you in Florida when you did that Metal Fest in Ybor City.
Yep.
But we did a winter gig.
Yep. Well, when you had the homeboy from Mucky Pop and that, but yeah, that was a dope show. I remember
Dan was with
Philadelphia.
Me, one of my steadier bass players at the time, Dank, who plays in Whiplash. And, the other cat behind the drums.
You guys were good with that lineup. First time I saw you guys with that lineup.
That was my single lineup. That was the lineup I did my EP with.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope.
I don't bullshit anybody. I'm not going to, book a tour or a show and call it Leeway. I call it Leeway NYC because I want people to understand that this is a new phase. Yeah. I'm the last of the Mohicans in this thing.
Yeah.
And, I'm happier. I'm happier working with people that I appreciate or who appreciate and respect me. We'll go into the story.
Yeah. We're gonna take I know you've done it a couple of times, but we're gonna do a quick trip down memory lane on you coming up, because also you guys, well, one of my personal writing and style, you guys were definitely a big part of that shit. It was always Raw Deal, Leeway, Chromax, Agnostic Front. You know what I mean?
You know how the grapevine is, and I've always heard nothing but respect from your angle, and I'm honored by that because, we're losing so many friends from this thing of ours. I'm a generation before you.
Yes.
And, so I have a little more history in this thing when hardcore was still a very punk vibe.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And that was the thing with you guys, you see. As punk as I was into the punk side of hardcore, it was like GBH, which Discharge, which was hardcore. It was more than the punk rock. And I always liked I liked thrash metal, but I didn't like every thrash band. And I didn't like, a lot of the aesthetics of, I didn't like the fake, the too much of the costume. It looked like everybody was in a costume. And
dragons and the whole cocky ego,
but I always loved that the performance, they were always killers. They always sounded good. And I was always like, man, and two bands did that for me that made me say, okay, how could I take that flavor and bring it into this lifestyle was Chromex and you guys, where you showed you could have 2 full stacks and sound tight as fuck and still kill it at a hardcore show and not be like.
I was lucky. I was lucky to have great musicians.
Yes.
The guys that I first started with, you know, the rhythm section didn't stay for long, but me and AJ held on to it. We started getting better players.
Yeah.
When Williamson started giving us attention and love, and we started getting past those, you know, CB shows and everything, the whole thing about metal, which drew bands like Chromex, AF, and the other bands between the 85, 86 period when metal started being a key component to the sound of what New York hardcore was. To make what was great about New York hardcore was we saw the sound capabilities out of metal and incorporating that into this street style that is hardcore, you know, and it all just meshed. It was like a marriage that was going to last a long time. And it has, Pop. You know, what is it? 35 years, 36 years now.
Yeah.
We're in documentaries. We're getting books. We get to tour regularly. We're getting to do a lot of things that we never expected to do.
That's why I wanted to, you know, especially a guy like you and being one of the bands that's a key factor in coming in, not like, oh, it's just a touch of metal. No, there was a lot of thrash in there mixed in with just, you know, flavor. What, you know, if it was like, there was no hip hop, but the hip hop flavor was there. And that's what I loved. It wasn't trying to be hip hop hardcore. It was the vibe. It's the same thing Madball has. We never try to be a hip hop hardcore band, but our flavor comes out that head bop shit. And Leeway had that head bop shit. It was like, you know,
your fraternal brotherhood was based out of graffiti.
Yeah.
And that's where the crew thing came from. And this is the thing that caught a lot of heads who listened to hip hop and then found this thing going on downtown that was rough and rugged. And it was like, oh shit. You know what I mean?
So that's what I wanted to go in. That's what I wanted to talk to you now. Let's go back to the beginning. Because again, I know you trace your beginnings, but I like to know your beginning more because again, I'm my whole shit is I was always a hardcore kid and never a metalhead, but I loved metal. But I always said, man, that metal shit is how, like what you guys thought. We gotta take, this is what, you know, we take a little flavor that just makes the hardcore shit next level. You know what I mean? Like components, different vibes. And I was thinking the same shit. And then when I heard certain bands, I was like, okay, they know what time it is. So I always wondered, how did you, like coming up, I never pictured you being, you guys, now tell me, I don't know, and I might be wrong, but I never saw you guys as coming up on the punk side of this type of music. Were you guys on that, or were you from the classic rock?
When was your first show? And then I'll break it down for you. When was your first show? Like
my first show was in 88.
88. All right, so that's when you came in.
All right. I came in way, like I say, you know, I always say late, like the beginning of that third, fourth, I don't even know what you call it, that later generation.
You were right in the mix. In effect, Crossover was in, Metallica's already peeping matinees.
Yes,
Anthrax stole a lot of our shit. And I'm not saying my shit personally, but they came and they were mad influenced by what we were doing down there. Yeah. And we contributed, whether people realize it or not. And it's not just me. I'm not trying to ego it myself out, but a lot of motherfuckers saw what we were doing in New York, and they were influenced by us the same way we were influenced by them.
Yeah, right. You know.
Let me try to do this in 3 minutes or less.
Yeah.
I'm born in 65, all right? My father's in the life, but he was also a film editor for WOR TV when it was still in the Empire State Building.
I remember WOR TV.
You know, he was Italian, you know, but he was a bit of a cowboy. That's why LCN never picked him up and made him. He was just too wild. My mom was Puerto Rican, German, and Irish. And, you know, she aspired to be a singer and a dancer, but her dad refused to allow her to do that. So I'm born in Astoria, and I moved out to Long Island for several years. That's when the family breaks up, you know. By the time I come back to New York, it's December 1980, the same night John Lennon shot and killed. I moved back to Astoria. By 81, even though I've heard punk rock and I heard about a few skinhead bands, that's when I first started going to shows. You know, by the time I was 16, I was breaking night and checking out A7s within a year or two. Now, AJ was another Astoria kid that was checking things out and going to shows at night. And we always talked about doing a band. It finally starts coming together around the same time Metallica's Kill 'Em All comes out.
Mm.
And you know, of course, we're going to hardcore shows, we're thriving, we're loving this thing, but we also come from this metal background, this rock background. You know what I mean? And I'm the type of dude who at home was trying to sing, whether it was to Van Halen or the Police, or all the R&B shit that I grew up with. You know, my first record is ABC from the Jackson 5.
That's my shit right there. Hell yeah.
So here we are. I was doing covers of Grandmaster Flash in local pubs at 17, 18 to get free drinks and hang out at night.
Yeah.
You know, besides, you know, going downtown, checking shit out, bugging out, you know, like we all do. We're all young, you know, young cats with too much energy. Let's leave it at that. Right?
Yeah, you know how that is.
And
Queens.
so finally, June 1984, we get the opportunity to play with Gilligan's Revenge, which became Token Entry, and a couple of other bands. And ironically, it's off Queensboro Plaza. I'm trying to remember the name of the club offhand.
I heard about that spot. I never, you know, obviously I wasn't around, but I heard about that spot.
Turned into a different type of thing afterwards. But this was the same place Kiss showcased and played their very first show.
Wow.
So it's like I got that trivia tripped into it too. Like my first gig is in the same spot Kiss had their first gig.
Crazy.
Go figure.
Okay, now let me ask you, that was on the Leeway, or what was because
the first show was The Unruled, but in a matter of months, we knew we weren't going to keep that name because it just didn't have flavor. You know what I mean? It was so average, and it would have been average. We had the choice of two names between friends of ours. Ironically, one of the names was Juggernaut or Leeway. Now, I looked at the definition of leeway, which just seemed to be so appropriate for this movement. You know what I mean? Like even in the late 60s, early 70s, there was the expression, give me leeway. You know, and leeway, the definition is a margin of freedom to do the things you want to do. I thought it was appropriate, even if it might have sounded too rocky, like, you know, Fast Way or, you know, something like that. I still felt like it was the right name for what we were trying to do, because I did not want to be the usual hardcore singer and just yell and scream, you know, and I did have this early hip hop flavor, but it wasn't hip hop, it was rap, you know what I mean? And, you know, even though I was bicking my head bald with a razor, I was rocking kicks. I wasn't the type who felt like, oh, I could go to the mall this weekend and get boots and braces and walk the walk.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
No, for sure. Like, you know, and I could personally, you know, speak for guys like Ezek and myself, because we grew up together. That's why guys like us got into it, because we weren't so much from the punk rock end of it, the squatting side of it. You know, we were neighborhood kids. We grew up with hip hop, but we liked crazy music too. So we used to be same thing, you know, us from when we were kids. We'd have DMs, but we have triple fat gooses on. You know, we.
I know. I remember. I'm sorry again. I remember the first night I met Ezek.
Yeah.
And you know, this had to be just around after recording Born to Expire, and I ran into him on the subway again on Queensboro Plaza. You know, I guess I was on my way back from the city, and he was smaller than me then.
Yeah.
Like I was looking down at him with his big teeth and his crazy
Yes.
ass judo. But you know, I loved his energy. He came off mad cool to me. And then ironically, 2 years later, y'all fucking took shit over.
Yeah, you know, we were kids.
You know?
Like, I'll tell you a funny story, and this is why, to show you what leeway was to us. So, you know, like, you know already, when Born Expire was supposed to come out, and it took years before it dropped. Obviously, you know better than anybody.
Months. Recorded
So
November
we were waiting.
January.
We were waiting like motherfuckers. So me and my boy Beto, who played he was in Madborn, he played in 25 to Life too. So me and him, this is us in high school. There was Numbers Records in Queens. You probably know Numbers. You know, that was the hardcore spot for us in our old neighborhood in Jackson Heights. Your record came in, Born Expired was in the box. And we're talking to my boy who owns the store. We're like, come on. He goes, yep, I'm going to put him up today. We're like, yo, come on, man, open the box now, because we were waiting. We got him.
Why wait?
Listen, he was like, yo, I'm going to hook you guys up. And me and my boy split it. Records were like $7.50 or something. I put up $5. He put up the $3 or whatever. And I was like, okay, yo, I'm going to use it from Monday to Friday, and I'll lend it to you for 2 days. And we split Born to Expire for fucking.
So you both burned tapes and you're all set. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then it was like, but that was like, again, that was like a special time. And it was, you know, the record, exactly. It was the right, you know, the time it took, that little delay, it may have sucked in some ways, but I think in the overall scheme of things of this music, I think it did it right, because it was, to this day, people copy that flavor, because I think if it came out a little too earlier, I don't think people were ready for it. They were still on some punkish kind of stuff. Like, you guys are kind of ahead of the time with that, you know, being.
Most people don't give us the props, like Anthrax made all this, or this other band. And because we officially did not come out until '89, it's like we were behind the timeline of who created what. Now,
yes,
it's funny, because by the time the album came out, right, everybody had rough mixes. You know, the rough mix got out early to the local scene, so people were copying it like a motherfucker. And you know how it is back then, even with your early singles, one person buys the single, right? And then 15 other cats burn it on tape. You know what I mean? So much for record sales. But the other point I was trying to look at, people locally, or at least in the tri-state area, by the time the album came out, they already knew the lyrics. They were already singing along to it. We already had a very powerful following. And the beautiful scheme of things is Crystal Williamson allowed us to open up bands like Overkill.
Yes.
And Jetsam. And all those bands that, you know, guys like us are like, you know what I mean? Because they're not 100% on our tip or on our vibe. And it gave us the chance to light motherfuckers up and steal the show. You know, no respect to Suicidal Tendencies, but we opened them up one night with Sick of It All. Sick of It All opened us up. They, you know, at the time weren't as big as we were, but they're the phenomenon now and have been for 25 years. But at this point, it was Sawyer, us, and Suicidal Tendency. Now, I was working at the Tunnel already. And the night before, I raided all the condom machines in the bathroom. So I blew up like 7 bags of condoms into balloons. I had Jimmy Drescher, I had Rabies on stage, and a couple of other guys. So as soon as we clicked off into the first song, all these condom balloons blew out. And this is Urban Plaza. The place broke. The place broke. And we had a great set. We go upstairs, and the doors open in Suicidal's dressing room, and the lights are off, and they're not saying a word. They are quiet as mice. You know what I mean? So like that was an example of how we were being put in a position through Williamson to build our notoriety. And we got an early legend of being show killers. You know what I mean? And I thrived on that because, you know, obviously being as a singer and it started coming to a point, I had self-esteem issues. I was an insecure motherfucker. You know what I mean? So I used to have to hype my little ass, my narrow ass up to get up there and be leeway. You know what I mean? It was who I was, and this was my energy, and I was being true to myself vocally and lyrically. But you know how it is. Like when your first shows, and if you don't feel nervous even today before you go on, you're in the wrong gig.
Of course.
Your people. You want to please your people, and I'm just grateful to have those memories and to still be alive here, and to know that this music is still very relevant today. I could not do it myself. I was very blessed to have guys that were more than capable musicians working together to build this energy and to create this energy. And we had a lot of changes in and out, but we always delivered. We always made an effort to push the envelope and you know, do something else and something fresh, album after album, without even giving a fuck whether, you know, people got turned off or not. Like you mentioned GBH and Discharge. Discharge was a Rock Hotel band for a while.
Yeah.
And their sound changed drastically around 87, 88.
Yeah.
And the singer started sounding like Gene Stapleton from All in the Family, because, you know, like his vocal voice was, I remember the Skinheads that night having the garbage pails in the Ritz, which is Webster Hall today, and literally throwing the garbage at them until they walked off the stage after 3 songs. Thankfully, I've never been kicked off a stage like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fuck that. Us either. Thank God. I mean, yeah, that's some type of free. Now, let me ask you, Leeway, original lineup Leeway. Who's the original lineup Leeway? Is it the guys on the first album, or you had anybody different before that?
Now, on the first 2 demos, it was me and AJ. And on the first demo, I'm still using my Italian name, my birth name, Pomponio. I took the name Sutton. It was my grandmother's maiden name. 7 Puerto Rican and Irish women whose parents were basically, you know, their mom was from Puerto Rico. She never learned the language. And, you know, great grandma Abuela. And she married a Confederate officer.
America. That's some America shit, real America shit.
What it is, exactly what it is. Now, what's the point I'm getting at? But the first 2 demos, you know, it's me, AJ, a drummer, Sasso Matroni, who I'm still in touch with and very much in love with, you know what I mean, as a friend, and he supports me to this day, as well as Jose Ochoa. Jose was the first of the 2 that we let go, and it was heartbreaking because he really wanted to do this. But, you know, musically, AJ and I were really starting to elevate with our talents. And Sasso was a bodybuilder. So he was having a hard time with the beats, especially in his forearms and wrists. He was starting to cramp up.
Yeah.
But that gave the green light to find the Brazilian cat, Tony Fantal, who was on the first Born to Expire album. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't really know hardcore, but, you know, we met him, we got linked up somehow, some way, and he just wanted to be like John Bonham. And we were like, yeah, okay, bring it. You know what I mean? And he brought a lot of depth to the sound. Then we got Zowie Ackerman, who was in
I haven't
Course for
seen
Alarm.
Zowie in many years, but shout out to Zowie.
Zowie, I love you. He's living a very quiet life in San Francisco. He's not into
I saw him 20 years ago. He popped up at a Madball show like 25 years ago. And he was smiling as fuck. I thought he was dead. those rumors
But
or
he was
whatever.
bronzed, right? He was so tanned, he was bronzed, if I remember that time.
I just was outside playing Berkeley Square, and then I see a smile, and he was living out there. And man, oh shit, I was bugging out because last I'd seen, I was a little kid. You know what I mean? And it was like, but and a killer. That dude was a fucking monster player. You know what I mean?
He went through a lot.
Yeah.
A couple of the women out of the very early punk scene were victims of Joel Rifkin. I don't think many people know that. Now, Joel Rifkin killed the girlfriend of Reagan Youth singer David Sargent. And
that's some crazy shit.
Dave wound up ODing himself as a suicide because he lost his mom, and then he lost his woman to this serial killer.
Crazy.
Now, no offense to Zowie, his girlfriend and him broke up, but she disappeared. And I don't know if there's ever been any officiation on the case, but there was a very good chance. And he was going through that, spending a lot of time with the police in the 6th precinct, trying to sort this shit out, where the hell she went. And, that'll turn any motherfucker to drugs. Well,
yeah, crazy. That drug shit, man, it's crazy because it affects everybody. It doesn't matter musician or not, but in music, it affects so much people because for two reasons. Half the times, half musicians, we have our own problems and we're doing that. And two, on a creative level, because I do believe, and this is what I was going to ask you about, because I know you've had your experiences with drugs, as we all have.
It took me 25 years to get my mind really in order. I mean, I went into treatment in 95. I'm not a sober man, but, I'm not sticking needles in my arm. I don't have a glass dick in my mouth. I never had a glass dick in my mouth. That jerk off from Baltimore that everybody can't stand?
Yeah.
Who likes to email or leave comments making fun of everybody's. I'm not going to give up his knuckleheaded name, but he can't even get my drug of choice, let alone spell my name.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, now let me ask you this. Speaking of
I want to answer that question. That question for you. When you grow up in a depressed environment, or like girls who grow up and wind up being touched by a family member or a stranger, combine that with self-esteem and insecurities, and then all of a sudden you try, weed for the first time. Okay, but for most people with issues, that's just not enough. They're not looking at it as a medicine for anxiety. So they want to trip, they want to do bumps. Yeah. And eventually in this world, there's more Oxycontin than there is heroin out there. And people start with the pharmaceutical opioids and then eventually have to go to the streets. And in today's world, you've got basically nothing but bags of fentanyl out there. It's a fucking crapshoot.
Yeah.
I thank God that, by the time treatment started working for me, Oxycontin was only in the world and in distribution for about a year.
Oh, yeah. So,
and believe me, if I was still playing that game, I would not be here. Motherfuckers wouldn't want to work with me because I can't budget my finances. I ain't got fucking decent health care. You think my woman who's raising 2 kids is going to want a cat like me in her life? You know what I mean? I just feel very lucky and to have all these opportunities and to still be able to kick it with kids, fans that are half my age, or to have the connections of great people helping me stay on the platform and grow from where I am now at 55, still having that opportunity. It's a huge gift, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I got to say too, because, again, being a kid, going to shows, I know you since I'm a little kid. I know a lot of people are little kids, and we've also since then we've lost a lot of people who have had a less crazy lifestyle than you and myself, and we've lost them. That's how I know we're lucky, both of us. And I know we both had crazy lifestyles, very crazy lifestyles. And
Yeah.
especially, if it wasn't just with, if it was a drug thing, with a lifestyle, period. It's all the same shit, the lifestyle.
Takes pleasures. It doesn't have to be chemical. It's the chemistry that goes off and sparks the brain looking at a beautiful woman and intermingling with that woman.
Yeah.
It was that was the combination for me, bro. I was making too much money in clubs between Palladium and Tunnel. The band's blowing up locally and regionally, and I'm getting all that props and attention for that.
Yeah.
So I'm getting club girls, whether they're, bad girl debutantes from uptown or club girls coming over from the bridge in the Tunnel.
Yeah.
And then the hardcore thing. That is literally how I got caught up with my drug world, because I used it for sustaining power at night.
Got you.
And
let me ask you this.
I think cats call it fucking lovely. We fuck lovely.
Yeah.
Chemical
now
in there.
let me ask you, did that help you with music, with writing?
What do you mean, like the partying and the women?
Like the drugs actually being high? Did it ever come into play with your music writing and that? Like, even if it, and then obviously, even if it was, besides giving you, a topic during a downswing. Okay, let me write about my. Besides that, did you ever? Because like me with Blazing, I wrote every song I've ever written lit, but I would blaze, and because it would help me zone out. It's like having it, just taking the edge off, and it would let me be open and not be judgmental to myself. Like I would let myself.
Till I was to 25, maybe, but. When I used to smoke weed and write, even before the band started, and as I was writing songs, I thought that what I was writing was fucking fresh and everything. But then after I looked at it sober, I was like, fuck you talking about, man? Crumble that shit up and throw it away. What's wrong with you? But my environment and the life I led and the people around me were my stories. And I think that's why it's not boring for me to even go out and do a Leeway set nowadays, because I am telling the stories of my life. Like, the other guys play for other bands now, which is, financially healthier for them. And, we didn't get along much in the end. So, this works best for everybody. Everybody's working, everybody's eating, moving. And I don't like talking shit about them, because we all created this. I'm not this egotistical front man who's going to sit around and say, oh, this is all because of me. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people could turn around and say it's all my fault, which I know it's not. We just had bad business management and bad luck. It never worked. But all these songs are such a key story in my life that it can easily take me back. And it also helps me to emote the song, because I look at my vocals in a bluesish R&B type of way. I am really trying to pour my heart out and tell the happiness or the pain that comes from this song. Like, take All About Dope, for example.
That's my shit right there.
I didn't write that about myself. I wrote that about a roommate, a very phenomenal guitar player who had the world by the balls if he wanted it, but this thing took him down. And that's who I wrote about.
That's one of my jams too.
But give it a year or two later, that's me. I become the song. You know what I mean? So,
let me ask you this. Let's rewind. I have questions for me that I always wondered too. Okay, Born to Expire, because that's one of my albums, right there. Do you remember how many days you took in the studio recording it?
You got to repeat that.
Do you remember how many days?
So give me that again.
Do you remember how many days it took to record Born to Expire?
We were up in Rhode Island. We were the first band to go to Normandy and Warren. After that album, everybody wanted to go up there and capture the same sounds and the same production and everything. I'd say within 10 days, we did take our time.
Yeah.
And that went with Desperate Measures as well, because both those albums were done there. Adult Crash was done in Manhattan. We did go back up to Normandy to do Open Mouth Kiss, but not all the album, some of the tracks. But it was cool to be able to go up there, just be in a quiet New England town,
Yeah.
focus on your album, lock out a studio that's known for different parts of the industry, because like New Kids on the Block, New Edition, and then like, you know, regular rock bands like Jay Giles, or, you know,
Who
the guys
found that
Boston,
studio? Like what? Like you said, it
Chris
became a staple. You know, that studio to this day, bands will pop up trying to find Tom Source to recapture that sound. I know Terra loved that sound. Nick Jett, my boy, and who found them? How did you find them? And like
that was Chris Williamson. You know, a lot of people give him a bad name, and yeah, okay, he handled the budgets. You know, whatever he got to spend on himself or save, as well as with shows or providing this or that. Look, the guy helped make us who we were. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he found the right studio. We trailblazed, being the first cats out of New York to be in that room, do what we did, that inspired others to want to capture that same energy or sound. Setting us up to be able to blow away bands that were the shit to so many others, to get to go on a 12-week tour with the Bad Brains Quickness Tour in 1989, before they started having their breakup issues. Like, the dude gave us all the opportunities to achieve what we were capable of achieving at the time, you know, and we had the ball to do it. You know what I mean? I'm not as disappointed with Chris Williamson as I am with, say, Profile Records and the companies afterwards that were too half-assed to really put us on the platform we needed to be on.
Yeah.
You know? And,
yeah, I know.
And I think, you know, by now, like, whatever goes on in business, as long as you could recover and move on, you still have longevity. You still have people wanting to come out and see your songs. You know what I mean? Like, I know you got kids going to shows that are younger than Set It Off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know
No, for sure. You know, it's generation. You know,
that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
You know, because kids that age, once they know how old we are, we think they want to kick with us.
I know.
There's got to be some connection, and we're blessed with that connection. You know?
I know, and that's one thing I learned. You know, Madball, we've been lucky with it, and not just lucky, is also how we live. It's coming up from the AF school, the School of Agnostic Front, and of Stigma and Roger. You know, those guys did with us. I talk about it, and I will talk about it to the day I die. I was a little kid going to shows with my boys, and Stigma would come right in the cypher and be like, "What's up, fellas?" and blaze with us and drink. And Roger would come, "Yo, you guys going in the show," not knowing us. Now we're standing there, little kids, and you got Vinny Stigma, you know, in a cypher with you guys kicking it. They never looked at it, "Oh, you little kids," and kind of rock star shit. And then being in the band,
that's a shot with John, having guys like that encouraging you to keep moving forward and do your thing. And the other thing, you know, both Roger and Vinny, and it's probably a little more Roger, they learned a lot from the business, and it helped them to take charge to build their brand, you know, without the intention. You know what I mean? Because it's it's not supposed to be about business. Nigga, how do you survive if you're not business savvy? You know? But, you know, Roger picked up a lot, and having Freddie as his younger brother, y'all were in the right place to be yourselves, create your thing, show it to the world with pride, but also be smart about how to capitalize on this. Because look, if you don't capitalize on it, somebody else is gonna.
Yes. And we have no choice.
You know what I mean? So it's like, am I here to get raped? Or am I here to do my thing and be properly compensated? because that's what it's supplemental income.
Yeah, no, and that's why I'm glad to come
supplemental.
up the way we did from that era because, and again, that was referring to those guys never, they always had, if they needed a new guy, they always got a new blood in the band. They never were like, oh, some new jack. They were like, no, this is the next generation. Let's listen to what these kids got to say. And that's how we learn. That's how we get a lot of love from the newer generation because we have these bands that are popping now. We took them out early on. But are we hating because they passed us or something? No, I'm glad. Now you take us on tour. Now you say hardcore when you do an interview for, Rolling Stones. Yo, it's a win for everybody. You know what I mean? Our whole shit is to elevate the whole movement because we all live in this movement. You know what I mean? All of us. We all, like, I have my children, because of this movement. My life, I feed them because of this. When I have fun, my friends, what we do here is all because of this. It's all because of this crazy music we're part of. It's a special thing. It's really crazy.
What we're trying to do to eat in another way. We might be sticking our necks out and looking at time because, we don't have something that is cathartic. The pleasing word I'm looking for. It's very satisfying to be able to go out and do this art, as corny as that may sound, you know what I mean? Because hardcore is supposed to not have all those layers of bullshit that is entertainment. Do you know what I mean?
No, I get it.
And if your ego isn't real, you're going to get checked.
Yeah.
You're not,
You know what was one of the greatest Leeway shows I seen? And it's pretty funny because it was the Super Bowl. You had the skeleton suit on. You had the skeletons. It was that one, because it was the best part, the funny part of it. So I was at the show with MQ, and I'm like, MQ's like, yo, I'm gonna go get a drink, and I don't see him for an hour, for like a half hour. I'm like, where is this motherfucker? And you're playing. You guys are playing, and you ran off the stage. You had a wireless mic, and you went to the balcony, and you were standing on a table. Well, guess what? Who was sitting at that table was MQ. I look up and he's right by your feet, sitting on the table having a drink. And I'm like, you motherfucker. Crazy.
That was one of the better shows with the skeleton outfit. Was it the Super Bowl, or you sure that wasn't the Overkill show?
I think it was the Super Bowl, because I don't think I seen you with Overkill, but I want to say it was the Super Bowl. I just know for a fact you went on the balcony with a wireless. And because I was like, oh shit, this nigga's bugging. And you are on, like, standing on a table, and MQ, you were standing on basically the table MQ was sitting at. He got up there and was drinking.
MQ was hanging out probably either at the same table or one table over with Kirk Hammett, James Hetfield, Scotty Ian,
exactly,
and some industry guy. I'm doing the set, watching my band from that center stage up on the top rise.
Yeah.
And feeding me kamikazes the whole time.
Yeah, it was crazy. Because that's
a high note. But let me tell you something else. When I did the Super Bowl show, 5 days earlier, I got busted on Delancey Street. And I spent 4 days in the Tombs kicking like a motherfucker, bro.
That must have been rough.
AJ did the WNYU radio show, and like he's on the air going, Eddie, I don't know where you are, but I hope you make it to the show.
Crazy.
I had nobody to get in touch with. I literally got out the morning of that gig, crawled to my mom's house, took a 2-hour hot bath, made my way to the show, and spent most of the night under the table in the headliner backstage area. You know what I mean?
Crazy. That was
in that position, a person would be so desperate to go cop and get straight at that time. And by the grace of God, at that night, I did that show very sober. And I was very humble that night too, and very open about, just being blessed. And I don't know really what I said exactly to the audience that night, but it was such a challenge for me to go there. And that was supposed to be the celebratory show, because here it is, the start of the new year, and the album's about to drop finally in 1989. And here I am. I was kicked into the gutter and in the Sewers of the Tombs for 4 days because of
Hard.
motherfucking door. You know, the
Hard.
other thing I think, God, a lot of people think I might have been like a gavone when it came to drugs. My habit was always very small. I couldn't really afford to do the shit that other people were doing, you know. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think if I was more caught up with drugs than the way people assume, I would have been dead.
Yeah.
I'm not a big guy, you know. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
some
I know what you mean.
Superman, you
Crazy.
know. Even
Okay.
Johnny Thunders went down by 38. You know.
Yeah. No, out of all your albums right now, you had to pick one album, and not just your out of the leeway records, not the latest stuff from the older stuff, and not because it was the latest stuff you did being the closest to what you're into now. If you had to pick a perfect representation from the old band, one of the albums from the Open Mouth Kids to the first albums, out of those records, which record you picked that you're like, okay, yo, that's my record.
Oh, yeah. I can't pick one. I love.
Give me two.
Born to Expire because we kicked the door in and started slapping motherfuckers all over the place with what we came with. But by the time it was over in 95, Open Mouth Kiss reveals the musicianship and evolution of the songwriting techniques that mainly me and AJ did. Because Pokey was on 3 of the 4 albums.
Yeah.
On drums, you know what I mean? So he's included in that. Jimmy was on like the last 2 albums. And really the core that really made the band through those 4 discographies is me, AJ, and Pokey. You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, again, when I look back on it, I see how we had so many opportunities to have more recognition, but this industry is very cruel as far as who gets propped up and who doesn't get propped up. But the fact that I can go out and do shows today and I can have people come up to me and tell me how the music and especially the lyrics have helped change their lives and help them cope and endure through their own things. To like sit and talk to a 24-year-old meth head, you know, and have him tell me how this song or that song touched him and helped him to evolve and change and grow, you know, is really what it is. Because for my thing now, it's more about a social connection. You know, it's not just doing the show to get paid and sell merch and do all these other things. You know, that connection is really what makes it worthwhile to keep going. Not just going to see old friends when I get to this town or this country. You know what I mean? It's that full connection and seeing the same fire in their eyes that we had in the beginning. But now we're just fathers. We were kids, we became fathers to this thing. You know, so it's very important for us to put an arm around these kids and show them the proper way, because most of them don't even really know how to act.
Facts.
They don't even understand the code. They want to get down with this group of people or this fraternal order, but they don't even understand a code. They don't even understand how to carry themselves. They just go by things. You know what I mean? I see fights at shows, especially when you see it with the younger scene. It reminds me of junior high school when the kids are getting out and they know there's going to be a fight on the school lawn. Everybody's rousing in a circle, and there's a couple of kids jumping around like fucking frothing monkeys. You know what I mean? Just to see a fight. You know, and you know, that soap opera, even back in the day when shit was rough and rugged, is only a fraction of what this thing really is, man. You know, and guys like us that are still alive and are still at it, we've got to try to, you know, show them the way, give them the code, let them understand. You know, and
always.
You know, I've been blessed with people reaching out to me through the last decade, asking for help as far as recovery and getting their lives back in order. And these are a lot of the main reasons why I want my podcast to get steady again. I had everything going really well before the pandemic, but I settled in where I live now, which is in South Virginia, because, this shit just turned us all upside down. I was
Yeah.
never politically conscious until
Yeah.
just this past year.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I
No,
mean?
shit's crazy. Shit's crazy.
President never affected my life. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And I've been around since LBJ, Nixon, into Jimmy Carter, Reagan, to
Yeah.
Bush, to Clinton, to Bush, Obama, to this motherfucker now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And none of these guys ever affected my life the way this chump, because I can't call him by his real name. And I can't help needing
Yeah.
to speak my mind about this. And I've lost followers, but
Yeah. It's
I've
crazy time.
also maintained it. I'm not under my numbers, but quite a few people who walked away from me because I have nothing positive to say about this chump.
Yeah. No, but this is the whole shit what I say. You know, America, you like who you like and hate who you want to hate. But if you're gonna be vocal about it, if you're gonna go in the octagon, get ready to fight. And I don't mean physically, but to deal with, you might have to cut people off, or you might have to take it, or you might have to be, or find out you really don't give a fuck. Whatever it is, the minute you open your mouth, get ready to know what it comes with. And
Oh yeah,
that's what I try to do. I really don't get political. Same thing where, like, I try to keep away from religion. I'm a religious guy. I don't believe in everything with the church, but I believe in God. But I don't get into that because who am I to tell you, anything if you say you believe in a head of lettuce? Who am I to tell you, mine's better than yours? I don't care. I'm like, oh, cool. If we're talking about religion, then I want to know. But I don't get into that because I know, like politics, it gets dirty. And you know how it is. You got to give a disclaimer with everything you do because, not that you got to care, but, and like on this platform, I do it to entertain and also to keep the history of our world alive. So I try to get old friends, OGs in the game and ask guys like you that I'm a fan of questions I always wanted to know. And
there's all shapes and colors in this thing. Like a lot of people don't realize in New York, the way we were raised, nigga wasn't straight up a black thing. And whether you say nigga or nigger, the accent just comes out as nigga.
Yeah.
And a nigga was a low life. You know what I mean? A nigga is like a condom. It comes in many shapes and many colors. You know what I mean? Like you can be down Canal Street and having a problem with a Cantonese or Mandarin guy, and he just like treats you like a nigga.
Yeah, check this out. I know, and it's again.
That's a word that's very hard to handle in our thing now. And if you want to say something like "all lives matter," it upsets people because that sounds racist.
You know what I
somebody who said that. I'm sorry. I know somebody who said that.
It's what I learned as the generate. This is something that I had to realize, and then once I realized it, it helped me not get so frustrated with fucking with the newer generation. Is we grew up in a different time with different codes. Unfortunately, it ain't like that today. But I understand what the older cats used to tell us. Oh, you kids with this crazy, you don't know, blah, 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 blah. And now we're doing that, but I get it now. It's like the wider picture gets more and narrower every generation. You know what I mean?
Your actions make waves. You and I know people whose actions in the wrong place at the wrong time ruined their lives, whether they got seriously hurt or they seriously hurt someone or killed them and had to go away and face that time. It's also making the choices of your lifestyle and what you want to do behind closed doors. You might like this girl, but you're having fun with her, and then all of a sudden, she gets pregnant. Now you have life changes, and you have to come to terms with that, man up. And a lot of men aren't men like you who have a family and you're raising that family. A lot of dudes just jump out and run from that. Everything we do has a reaction, without getting into too philosophical shit. And all we can offer most people is the advice that we've learned from our own experiences.
Exactly.
It is
Exactly.
what it is.
And
And I understand the thing about keeping it light. Sometimes I'm a shit talker. I'm a big guy. So,
no,
I
and
run my
again,
mouth for a living.
now,
I
and I
run my
don't mind.
mouth for a living.
And don't get me wrong, I always want people to speak their mind, even if it's against something. Like, I won't say, all right, yeah, let's not talk about it because I don't do politics. Let's not get into. No, we could get into. But one, I'm not a politician. I have my own beliefs or whatever. But I would do that more. Let's talk shit if I'm texting you. Motherfucker. All right. When we're doing this, I try to keep because what in my house, how it is in a household. One person is one thing, the next person is another thing. It brings families apart, let alone, you know what I mean? Let alone, and I'm like, you know what?
Especially
It's
right
not
now.
that important. It's important, don't get me wrong, but it's not that important to me where I want to lose my friends because right now the hot topic is elections for a year. And then what, I'm gonna lose a friend that I had for fucking 20 years for 2-3 years of bullshit or whatever it be. You know what I mean? It's like I see a I say, you like chocolate ice cream. I like vanilla. All right, I'm gonna hate. Whatever. I talk my shit in private.
I put my foot in my mouth. I put my foot in my mouth a lot, but I've also grown up, and what you're telling me is the same thing I'm gonna say. You think before you open your mouth.
Yes. Yeah.
Consideration,
like, respect.
Say this. Why am I going to say this and hurt their feelings? And
yeah.
Exactly. In the room.
Now, if the platform is this, like if I was like, yo, Eddie, I want you on my podcast because we're gonna have it's a political podcast. Okay, now we're gonna go in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, but I do touch because obviously it's part of life right now. All this, if it's the COVID thing, it leads into the climate of the world right now, which involves politics because of work and blah blah blah. So I try to skim through it, and everybody's the same. How did COVID affect you? We all know. I mean, it's got to get talked about, but it's so 2020 already to me. I'm so ready to be like, okay, what's happening now? What's cracking?
Well, it is 2021. We're in the first full week of 2021, and it's amazing that we're not past this. Like we've hit 3 waves that became, tsunami, tidal wave, to an even bigger tidal wave. And that's why everybody's upset. We've had a derelict in chief who didn't do anything. He calls it Operation Warp Speed. It's Operation Warped Speed. He didn't do anything. And like even yesterday, what he did with his cult of Kool-Aid drinkers and racist types that are just using him as an agenda to push their foul rhetoric. It's just causing so much. People just want to get with their lives. There's kids COVID, but by the grace of God, she was asymptomatic.
Yeah.
So she didn't get sick at all. My mom is, type 2 diabetic, high blood pressure. She suffers from clotting. If she would have gotten sick by this thing, it would have been a wrap for her. Yeah. I've traveled north every month or so. I do everything to make sure I'm not bringing this shit home to my in-laws and family.
Yeah.
At the same time. And it's just a fucked up way to live because it's almost like the zombie apocalypse. But, the people that get sick aren't eating flesh. They're just choking.
Yeah. This whole shit is movie, man. It's a crazy time on the planet Earth, for sure. It's a crazy time. And we're learning how to now it's showing the people that you're going to see people that are the type that are just going to lay down and die, and then other people that are going to have to adapt and overcome, because we're living in a new world. Even going back to normal will never be the normal it was of 2019. Yeah. So, but the good part about it, that it either did 2 things. It either started killing people slowly like a chemotherapy, or it started pumping life into people, where people started getting their life back together, if it's the health wise, being creative with their jobs or with their relationships or whatever. And for me, I basically, got my lifestyle better. I just focus on my children and my music. I always did, but now I focus on my health more, and I got my health intact and focused on my music and all that shit. And it gave me the focus to relaunch the podcast, which I've been wanting to do for years, which I love doing. And what better time than now to keep feeding our world. And when I say feeding our world, is like not just me personally, all of us, with keeping the whole soul of our movement alive by doing these podcasts, putting out online sessions, putting out merch, different platforms of guys from our world, because we come from a special world that came from the trenches and still in the trenches, but it could survive through anything. You know better than anybody, this music came up when people didn't want to hear this music. We found places to play. If it was a garage or an abandoned building, or you know what I mean, we made it happen. But it got people motivated. What do we got for 2021? What we got? What kind of Eddie Leeway we got? What's gonna happen with Eddie Leeway? What's cracking for 2021?
Talking about all of that, let me go through some of that. I love this content. I know you've been trying to get it steady, and you've been going at it in different ways. I remember you doing like the blunt casts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I remember when you were having fun with it. It was just you and your boys gabbing and bullshitting. Diablo's got his podcast. I've been trying to really make this happen since January last year as well, but the pandemic shut all of that down. This either makes people lay down and die, or you find the courage to step up, stand up, and adapt. And that's the key to life, is tackling your challenges and adapting to the environment that you're in. That said, musically, since at my age and everything like that, there's a lot of things that I'm looking to do that's kind of bucket list, bro. I'm somebody who loves R&B music. I wanted to take the sound of great 70s songs and incorporate them with a more rock energized arrangement. So, I've been waiting patiently to have the opportunity to work with the original bass player of Scream from DC. Now, most people know him as Skeeter Thompson, but he's older than me. He goes by the name of Enoch, and we've been back and forth talking about making something happen, but this goddamn pandemic has kept us at bay for the whole 10 months. Now, that said, with my people, I'm looking to do a live album of the Leeway songs, not so much the greatest hits, but the ones I enjoy doing, not just the greatest hits in most minds, but the songs that I do. I want to reissue that. I've had a beef with Tom from that bullshit label out in Belgium. Him and AJ, made this reissue plan that didn't really include me. I tried to go along to get along, but I felt like I was bullshitted, and I'm the only one out there busting my ass. And that's the problem with these labels, man. The accounting always seems off.
Yeah, I feel you.
And I know what creative accounting is, so I know when I'm being bullshitted or not. And they've just done a lot of things without my inclusion. So I'm just going to do my thing within the realm of the legal way, and do it legally. And one way I can do it is by re-recording these songs live. Whoever owns the rights to the first two albums can't come after me as long as I'm paying the publishing out. You know what I mean? And nobody else who is leaving me out of the picture can bitch and moan that I left them out of the picture. You know what I mean? This is my opportunity, like with this media thing, to basically get my story out. And I'm the one that's still keeping this legacy alive. I should
Yeah.
be given a little more respect, but you can't keep trying to stick an olive branch out and get your hand smacked again and again. You know what I mean? What's the point? What's the point?
Yeah.
Every time you try, you're just going to be looked at and not taken seriously. I guess they want to believe I'm the same person when I was sick 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So be it. I don't have time to, convince them anymore. I've tried to get in a room. I've tried to settle it. And I'm not going to do it like the way other bands in our thing have had their soap opera with the two main egos clashing back and forth, saying nonsense. One says all the nonsense. The other one bites his tongue, except for certain times he needs to speak his mind. And I don't want to play that. I really just want to move forward, do my thing, just like everybody else, let them do their thing,
Yeah. So you're gonna reissue now. Say that again.
I'm sorry. I've been blessed with an instant family. I've been blessed with an instant family the last 2.5 years ago. I've got a wonderful woman in my life I plan on marrying. She has 2 wonderful children. I was always afraid of raising kids because I never wanted to fail my children. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
When you can't support and raise them, especially if you and the baby mama doesn't stay together, it becomes a very contemptuous, ugly environment, and it affects the kids more than everyone else. But now I'm given this opportunity to be like a surrogate father and stepdad, and I'm excited, and I feel like I'm more than ready to be in that role now. So I want that's what a key part of my focus and energy is on right now. Besides being me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
Welcome
CasaDeRock.com, home of that fly DIY. You want to support the show? Go cop some merch right now. We got a lot of new t-shirts, shorts, and caps available. Everything is made in-house by your boy on the spot. So show some love, support the movement. CasaDeRock.com is a spot.
the next, because I know a lot of people are also wondering, like, with the band, because so who's gonna be recording those songs? Whenever you do the Leeway NYC stuff, the Eddie Leeway stuff, who the guys you have playing? I know some of the guys.
Right now, I have the opportunity. There's a band out of Long Island called Damn Your Eyes. Ironically, the 2 guitar players used to play with Harley. And, Gabby and Artie, and they are doing this other band. And I discussed an idea and plan. Artie's played with me. Gabby played with AJ and Pokey and me decades ago. So the idea is to let Damn Your Eyes do their set, and then they would be my band for my set. But as far as, the idea is to find the same like-minded guys to help me with the live album and have guest guitar players do the leads. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
That way there's a lot. I'm trying to show people it doesn't matter who's in the band with me orchestrating these songs, that we can kick it and we have fun and we have the energy to do it. Because when you have positive energy in a band, it definitely carries over into the work.
Of course.
Whether you're playing tracks or you're playing live. And this is more fun to me than the stress, bullshit, and drama I went through with the original team. People just grow up. This is what happens with bands. It's a rock and roll cliche, like becoming a drug addict. I was a rock and roll cliche. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what people expect from singers and frontmen half the time. So, for now, just being older and wiser, this is where I want to go. And I have these opportunities. I'd still love to work with Dan Nastasi, you know what I mean? And Enoch is somebody I'm really dying to take challenges and do different styles and sounds with. So I've got a lot of opportunities. I'm really just waiting for this thing to pass and the warm weather come so we all can start seeing each other, playing out together, celebrating this thing, celebrating life and survival. And I think it's going to be very, very easy for that energy to help all of us create some incredible things. Do you know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah, and I'm glad I got you, man. You know, no, I had you on. I made a list when I started doing the podcast again. I had made a list of guys I wanted to get, and you were on that original list. So I was glad to able to find you. And I know you've been on and off social media, and then I didn't see you on for a second. So I was going down through my list, and then the New Year's came, and then I was like, I saw something pop up. I said, now's my time to get them. So I started reaching out, trying to catch you up, and I was like,
Zach Bowen is somebody I always pick up the phone for, of course.
Yeah.
You know, we did Truth and Rights together. That's a phenomenal fucking CD.
Shout out to my bro, Zach. I know Zach. That's my little brother. I don't even want to say little brother like that, but I know him since he's a young buck.
Oh, he's another generation. You know what I mean? Agents of Man is one of my favorite bands. You know, the fact that I got to work with Ray and Zach and Georgie Puda was a staunch supporter of Truth and Rights. And I really wanted that to take off. I really wanted to have a whole new fresh start.
Yeah.
But I missed doing the Leeway stuff. And, you know, in order to finance another project, Leeway gave me an opportunity to you know, compensate, get decent players, guys that I enjoy playing with at, you know, like Manny Pasta, Dimmy, you know, Dank from Whiplash, Mark Thousands, who's more of an acoustic songwriter, but played with some of the bands that we're familiar with, like all phenomenal musicians. And, you know, we all got along the majority of the time, you know what I mean? But the business end always bugs me the fuck out. So, you know, sometimes it's difficult to be around me, you know what I mean? And it's hard to compensate everybody for their time.
It's rough.
Even $100 a show, you can be making more money, you know, putting in windows in an apartment complex.
Yeah,
you know
no,
I mean?
it's a rough gig being a musician. Then it still is, especially if you're a hardcore band. But we out here grinding. Eddie, I'm glad I was able to catch you. Like I said, I had you on my list, so I was glad to catch you. And I haven't seen you in a minute, so it's good. And you look good, bro. I was gonna say, you know, your face, your beard, you look good. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna let everybody know before we get out of here where they could catch you if they want to follow you, or what's cracking. You know, what any social media. Let people know what's up and what to look out for.
On Instagram, it's EDDIE_Leeway, Eddie_Leeway. That's Instagram. I mean, I'm on Facebook with the Eddie Sutton page, but really just to post information and shit like that. You know, at home, I've got Carolee and the kids. I buy and sell baseball cards. You know what I mean? That's a lot of what I did during the hobby. I went back to my youth thing. I'm having fun with that.
What's up, everybody? We back. Eddie got cut off, you know, while we were signing out, a little bit of technical difficulties, but yo, you could catch him on Instagram and Facebook, Eddie_Leeway, Eddie Sutton, Eddie Leeway, Google it, catch him. Shout out to everybody who's been tuning in. Look out for our next episode, and make sure you sign, you subscribe, you tune in, spread the word. Yo, we out.